Welcome to the EFS Modernization Project Training video series. This video will cover the VPK enrollment process. For this video, we'll start with the provider. On the Provider Services portal, the provider user will enter their username and password and click Log On. From the dashboard, the provider will go to Enrollments, Manage VPK Enrollments, and Request or Change Enrollment. As you can see, there are two options, one for Request or Change Enrollment and the other for a bulk file upload. All providers, public or private, can submit a bulk file upload with their VPK enrollment information. Let's start by requesting an enrollment here. Our provider, called Little Marvels, has two tabs, the Request Change VPK Enrollment or Bulk VPK Enrollment. These were the same options available from the menu item. There are several fields highlighted red. VPK Program Year, we'll start with 17-18, VPK Session, School Year or Summer, and the VPK Class. Each of these selections are being populated from the provider's VPK provider application. I've selected Summer Class AS-17, also called the Beach Bungalow class. The start date and the end date are listed. The max class size is 12. The VPK children count at this point are 12, non-VPK children count are 0. The non-VPK children count can be used to add private children. This reduces the amount of VPK children available to be added to the class. As you can see, the max class size remains 12, the VPK children count cannot exceed 11, and there is one non-VPK child. At this point, the provider has their VPK provider application approved with their classes verified. These are the classes that we saw here in the drop-down. They've also been receiving certificate of eligibilities from parents. We'll look at a certificate for a child, the VPK program year being 17-18, the VPK certificate number, the issue date, and the parent information is all filled out by the system, and it was provided by the family to the provider. The provider is going to use this information to complete their request. The certificate number is required. For the certificate we looked at, the number is VPK 5948. Okay, and the child name is Drax, and the last name is Latham, and the date of birth was 9/9/2012. The certificate number, child first name, child last name, and date of birth are all required to search for the child to enroll in this class. The certificate number must be entered as displayed here with the VPK prefix number hyphen VPK program year. We'll click Enroll this class and a pop-up appears to confirm the child details. At this point, several validations have taken place. Let's just back up a second. Let's change the first name to Billy. And the information entered does not match an approved VPK child. So the information entered must match an approved VPK child on file. We'll go ahead and click Enroll to this class again. Again, we have the pop-up confirming this is the correct child. Now the system is asking for an anticipated start date. The anticipated start date of the child cannot be prior to the certificate issue date or outside of the class start and end date. The class start date is 6/4/2018 and the class end date is 7/27/2018. Let's try with an anticipated start date prior to the class start date. Let's try a start date of June 1st, 2018 before the class start date of 6/4. As you can see, a message appears. The anticipated start date cannot be prior to the class start date. Let's try putting in a start date after the class end date. We'll try August 1st. And again, the anticipated start date cannot be after the class end date. All right, now we'll try a start date prior to the certificate issue date. The child's certificate issue date is 5/24. Let's try 5/1. And a message appears. The anticipated start date cannot be prior to the class start date. So there you have several validations that are taking place to make sure that you have the correct child for the VPK program year, and that the anticipated start date is within the class range and on or after the certificate issue date. We'll go ahead and fix this to June 4th, our class start date. And as you can see, the anticipated start date works. Another thing here on the page is this Choose COE file. It's an optional upload to upload the child's certificate of eligibility. This may be removed from the system. Click Enroll Child. In here, the child is displayed on the provider's roster with enrollment submitted status. There are several features the provider can use here. The anticipated start date can be changed. By clicking the Change button, a pop-up appears with some information about the child. DRAX is set to begin on June 4th in the AS17 Beach Bungalow class. I can change the anticipated start date by entering another date here. The anticipated start date does not have to go to the coalition for approval. This tool is used to change the date the child is expected to begin attendance. Once the child's actual start date is recorded, this date cannot be changed. So we'll put them on the next day, starting on Tuesday, June 5th, and save. And the child's anticipated start date has been changed to 6/5/2018. Again, the status is enrollment submitted. Another tool that can be used is this Remove feature. The Remove feature is really for children who have not attended or never attended. By clicking Remove, a pop-up appears. Again, this text may be changed, but basically it tells the provider that by clicking Remove, the child will be removed from the site and the family can request enrollment from a different provider. This feature is not to be used if the intention is to transfer the child to another classroom at the provider, and it's not to be used to terminate the child. This is solely for the purpose of removing the child from the roster if they have never attended. Once an actual start date is recorded, the feature will be disabled. The same with anticipated start date. As I mentioned earlier, the anticipated start date cannot be changed after an actual start date is recorded. This will happen when attendance is submitted by the provider and processed by the coalition. At this point, the provider can add another child. We'll do that here. And then we'll go to the coalition to see the approval process. 5946-2017. Gomorrah, Latham. Enroll this child. The details are displayed. Click Yes. We'll put in our anticipated start date, June 4th, and click Enroll this child. This provider now has 2 enrollments waiting for the coalition to be reviewed and approved. Refresh. Get our class back. You can see Drax is now enrolled. When a child is enrolled at the provider, they have the option to terminate the child or to change the class. Let's go ahead and get Gomorrah approved as well before we go back to these features. So now that both children are enrolled, they have additional features, the change class feature and terminate. Both of these options require coalition approval. Let's take a look at class change. Transferring the child to another class, as I mentioned, requires coalition approval. The from is populated based on the current enrollment, and the 2 will be available at the provider for the program year. In this case, there's only one class for summer, which is the AS17. Terminating also pulls up information about the child, requires coalition approval. The provider will enter the termination effective date and select a reason, and click Submit Request, and it will go to the coalition for review and approval.